What's up again, everybody? Last weekend, the New Zealand National Championship of Flesh and Blood occurred, and 81 players all converged to play a 2-day-long tournament, the first day of which was a Swiss-style tournament, and the second day was a top cut. So now that the dust has settled, we have a champion as well as a bunch of data to parse over, take a look at, and draw whatever conclusions we may come to. And that's what this video is for, drawing conclusions, trying to figure out what it all means, and where we go from here. Before we get rolling though, if you like this content, if you want to see more Flesh and Blood content in the future, please consider liking and subscribing. It helps the channel grow a ton, and I love doing this sort of thing, so if you want to see more of it, liking, commenting, and subscribing is a great way to tell me to keep going. We're currently sitting at 1,864 subscribers, and I think it'd be really amazing if we could hit our goal of 1,865 subscribers. Alright, enough silliness, let's get down to brass tacks. I think it's best if we begin at the beginning. I know that's crazy, but let's talk about the breakdown of the Swiss rounds and what kind of numbers that we see for each class represented. As I said, this was an 81-person national championships, and the most popular hero brought to the tournament was Dorinthia, with 16 players playing warrior. This comprises 19.8% of the field. Next up is Ninja, with 18.5% of the field and 15 total players playing Katsu. Hot on their heels are both Brute and Mechanologist, with 14 players each, bringing those classes to the tournament. Each of those classes comprise 17.3% of the field. We then have Guardian and Runeblade, each with 7 players, making up 8.6% of the field. And right behind those numbers, we have Wizard with 6 players and 7.4% of the field. The least popular class by far was Ranger, with only 2 players in the entire tournament bringing Azalea to the table. That comprises 2.5% of the field. So what do these initial numbers tell us? Well, it tells us public perception about some of these heroes and classes and their general power level, because we're going into this analysis with the mindset that players are prepping for a large-scale competitive tournament. If we can understand that players are building their decks from a competitive mindset with the idea to win a national championship, we can then take the next logical step and assume that the distribution of heroes and classes here represents what people think will give them the best chance to win. Now, of course, there's always one's play style to consider, and people are going to gravitate towards things they like to play that make them comfortable, that they can already interface with if they've started the game fresh, so we shouldn't take these numbers as gospel. So let's add some more data to this. After 7 Swiss rounds, and I'm assuming that this was a 7-round Swiss day 1, because looking at the standard Swiss amounts of rounds versus amounts of players, with 81 players, you're normally looking at that 7-round bracket. So after about 7 rounds, these numbers represent the people that made the cut into day 2. Making the cut into day 2, we see that there were 5 Dash players, 4 Dorinthia players, 4 Katsu players, 3 Rhino players, and 2 Bravo players. This means that there were no Wizards, no Runeblades, and no Rangers in the top cut on day 2. Now, if you're like me and you were curious as to what percentage of players made the cut based on their class, here are those. We have 36% of Dash players. That means 36% of the people that chose to bring Dash made the cut from day 1 to day 2. 29% of Dorinthia players made the cut. 29% of Bravo players made the cut. 27% of Katsu players made the cut, and 21% of Rhino players made the cut. Obviously, we've got 0% for everybody else. That kind of makes some sense, right? And it's at this point that I want to stop and say a huge thank you to Legend Story Studios for allowing me to use the images that they posted on their Instagram page. These are all from their Instagram page. Everything you've seen so far is data that I've pulled from their page that they shared with everybody. So thank you for allowing me to use these in the video. So now that we know how many players of each class and how the percentages of each class breaks down from day 1 to day 2, what does that tell us? Well, the first thing you may notice is is that Dash and the Mechanologist class is far and away the best class in Arcane Rising. Mechanologist is just clearly outpacing the Rangers, Runeblades, and Wizards of the Arcane Rising set, and as of right now it doesn't look like the Crucible of War set has really changed that in any way, shape, or form. We saw this prior to the drop of that set, and it's not looking like that set is tilting things in the other class's favors just yet. Furthermore, we see that Dash is just straight up converting more players from day 1 to day 2 than any class in the game at 36%. So the power level is real with Dash. Now, does that mean you should just drop every other class in favor of only playing Dash if you're one of those extremely competitive people? Well, no, and we'll talk about why here in a moment. But here's something else that's interesting that we can extrapolate from this data. Look at the relative parity between Welcome to Wraith heroes. All 4 of the Welcome to Wraith Set 1 heroes have a conversion percentage. By that I mean have the chance of taking you from day 1 to day 2 within 8 percentage points of each other. Dorinthia and Bravo come in at 29%, as I said, 27% for Katsu, and 21% for Rhino. That to me screams good balance. And it also means for the players that they have a choice and the ability to pick which hero suits their playstyle, with the understanding that if they play well, they can make the cut at a competitive tournament. So now with all of that understood, let's cut all the way to the top 8 of the tournament. These are the top 8 players in the New Zealand National Championship in no particular order. And rather than going down the list and butchering everybody's names, I'm just going to tell you what they ran. We have Dash, Rhino, Bravo, Dorinthia, Dash, Bravo. If you're keeping track, that's 2 Dash players, 2 Rhino players, 2 Bravo players, and 2 Dorinthia players. Yes, that means that there were no ninjas present in the top 8. Now, you may be shocked like I was to see 2 Rhino players in the top 8, but honestly I am loving it. That to me was very unexpected, but I really love that Rhino represented in the top 8, if for no other reason than I really like the class itself. As far as my personal expectations were concerned, I expected there to be more Dorinthia and Dash players within the top 8, and the fact that it was only 2 apiece was really intriguing to me. In fact, the total parity across the board with regards to these 4 heroes was really interesting and really exciting from a meta standpoint. And again, this basically just means for players that you have the choice to run just about whatever hero you want and whatever class you enjoy, and as long as you can play at a high level, you can make it to a high cut like this. I can't drive the point home enough. That's a very good thing for a card game meta, particularly a new card game. Now let's go one layer deeper and dig into the top 4 deck lists of the tournament. These are the top 4 players, placing 1 through 4, but I don't quite know who placed 3rd and 4th, so I'm going to give those 3rd and 4th place decks in no particular order. We're going to start with the Rhino Deck. Here we can see he's running the 1 Romping Club and not the 2 Mandible Claws from the most recent Crucible of War set. He's got the Arcanite Skull Cap and the Skull Horn for headpieces. He's got the Feindal's Spring Tunic for a chest piece, Scab Skin Leathers for the feet, and then he's got the choice of Ironwrought Gauntlet, Gambler's Gloves, and Null Rune Gloves as far as equipment goes. As far as his deck is concerned, he's got a predominantly yellow deck with regards to pitch amounts, and a lot of the powerful cards that you would assume to see in a Rhino deck. Alpha Rampage, Command and Conquer, which fits wonderfully. Some of the new cards pop in like Massacre and Arg Smash. We do see 3 copies of Beast Within, which is pretty cool. A couple of the old powerful cards like Tome of Feindal, Remembrance pop in there as well. And the deck has the ability to cycle itself with a single copy of Last Ditch Effort, along with Drone of Brutality up in the red there. As far as the Bravo deck goes, we see Anothos as the weapon. He also runs Arcanite Skullcap, as well as a Null Rune full set within the equipment side of things. He's got Tectonic Plating because duh. He's got Crater Fist as well as a Mage Master Boots set. I shouldn't forget to mention that he's also got an Ironwrought Legs set in there as well. As far as the deck is concerned, because this is a Guardian deck, it is running a huge contingent of blue cards and a lot of just general cards you would expect to see in this deck. You've got your Crippling Crushes in there, you've got your Spinal Crushes, Two Mangles pop in from the new set. Fate Foreseen is showing up there because opting is really good as well as defending. Tome of Faendal and Remembrance are your literal only yellow cards in the entire deck, and that's about what you would need for this. Recalling a Crippling Crush with Remembrance is pretty good. As far as new cards are concerned, we already mentioned the two Mangles up in the red slot. We also see 3 Stamp Authorities tucked in down there in the blue, as well as 3 Towering Titans. And 3 Chokeslams round out that list. Coming in second place was this Dorinthia deck, and this is Dorinthia running the Dawnblade alongside of Brave Forge Bracers, Arcanite Skullcap, Faendal's Spring Tunic, Refraction Bolters, and Null Rune Hood, a much smaller set of equipment than we saw in the previous 2 decks. As far as the deck composition is concerned, there are a ton of red cards in this deck. Powerful ones you'd expect to see like Scar for a Scar, Command and Conquer, Enlightened Strike, and Flock of the Featherwalkers. But some new cards that we see here, like Hit and Run and Spoils of War, make the cut, alongside of Out for Blood in the red slot. Outside of those and the 3 yellow hit and runs that we see, everything else is from the very first set. I gotta say, I really like the construction of this deck and the way that it looks like it would play. Out of the 3 decks that we've seen, I think I would want to play this one the most, and it would jive with my own personal play style. And the first place deck is a Mechanologist deck. This deck was run by Matt Rogers, and I've never met or talked to Matt before, so I only know of him through his dominance within Flesh and Blood, and the dude is dominant. He finished 7-0 on day 1, and then fought his way through day 2, all the way through the top 8 and into first place with this deck. So congratulations, Matt, on the first place finish and for being the official first New Zealand Flesh and Blood national champion. Taking a look at the deck, he's running the Plasma Pistol alongside of the Achilles Accelerator, an Arcanite Skullcap, Goliath Gauntlet, the Teklo Foundry Heart, Ironwrought Gauntlet, and a Gambler's Gloves. As far as the deck is concerned, he's running a whopping 34 blue cards in the deck. He's also running 28 red cards in the deck, including a few cards new to the game from Crucible of War like Plasma Purifier and Magnetic Shockwave. He's got some cool boost synergies with cards like Combustible Courier that help boost out, but the deck really shines when you get all of those Mechanologist items out in the field and doing all of their things, and just start shooting your opponent in the face over and over and over again with the Plasma Pistol. So looking at these top 4 lists, what can we garner from them? What similarities do they have? Well, how about the fact that literally all of them run a copy of Arcanite Skullcap from the Arcane Rising set? Look, I know there's a ton of people out there that really push Faendal's Spring Tunic as the best card in the entire game and a card you should own if you want to be competitive, but the lists speak for themselves here. Arcanite Skullcap is played across all 4 lists, and Faendal's Spring Tunic is not. In that same vein, 3 out of the 4 deck lists run a full copy set of Command and Conquer, another very powerful card from the Arcane Rising set. The only deck that does not run a copy set of that is the Bravo deck. We're also seeing that if any deck runs generic defense reactions, then it usually has some combination of Unmovable Sink Below and Fate Foreseen, a card that some people weren't quite sure would make the cut, but I kind of predicted would make the cut because Opt is so powerful, and it is looking like that is the case. So overall takeaways as far as deck construction is concerned that you can then apply to your own deck construction for competitive events. Probably want to go and get your hands on Arcanite Skullcaps and a full playset of Command and Conquer. Basically, when the Arcane Rising reprint drops, the unlimited version drops, you're going to want to get your hands on like a case and open it up hoping to get those cards. Outside of that, the powerful first set cards are still powerful. Things like Tome of Faendal, Enlightened Strike, Remembrance, Last Ditch Effort, things like that. And as far as large scale takeaways, feel free to run whatever hero you want and just practice a bunch, because you really do have a decent shot at performing well no matter what hero you pick. Unless of course you plan on picking Viserai, Kano, or Azalea. Ooh, or even better, maybe you should just run one of those 3 heroes and win the tournament anyway and prove us all wrong, or maybe prove us right, because honestly I'm rooting for Ranger here. Come on. So that's it. That's all. That's our deep dive look at the New Zealand Nationals meta and what it means going forward for future competitive play. I hope you enjoyed the video and the content therein. Let me know if I missed something. Let me know if you agree or disagree with anything I said within this video. F's in the chat for those people who are Ranger or Runeblade or Wizard class mains, and you were really hoping to see those classes perform a little bit better. I know I was kind of bummed not to see any of them move forward. So throw an F down in the comments section and I will give your comment a little tiny heart. Don't forget to do that like and subscribe thing, and as always everybody, thanks for watching.